This is Sybert signing into Red Alert 3 on the map Infinity Isle for Game 1 of this Best of 9. Perhaps the greatest dog and bear barking match you will ever see in your life. On the left side, playing the purple, playing the Soviets, this is DDF. And on the right side, playing the red, playing the Allies, it's DutchArmy. Now, fun fact, I thought this was DutchArmy versus OP Shizhao. That's what I thought this show match was. Apparently, it's DutchArmy versus DDF. So that is kind of funny. He is playing under the OP Shizhao name, which, as we've learned recently, apparently a lot of people play under the OP Shizhao name. So when you see OP Shizhao, sometimes it's not always the same OP Shizhao. Bears get a couple peacekeepers here. Nicely done there by DDF. When you see the name OP Shizhao, it's not necessarily the same guy every time. Apparently, it's either a common name or a shared account that multiple people will use. In this case, it's DDF. So we've got ourselves a best of 7, $75 on the line, courtesy of Media Storm. Big thanks to Media Storm and all the folks who support the channel over on Patreon. But Media Storm is very quickly coming up to 30 months of supporting show matches. Actually, a couple of those were tournaments. Some of it got rolled into tournaments. But overall, he sponsored not quite 30 show matches, but coming up to 30 show matches. I think this is like 27 or 28. So a huge, huge thanks to Media Storm. A lot of content from the last 2 years has been from Media Storm one way or another. A couple of indicators moving in. Walls are coming up. DDF and DutchArmy, they have met each other many times in the past. And by many, at least a couple of times. I'm actually not sure how much DDF has even been playing recently. I know DutchArmy has been playing a bit of Kane's Wrath recently. He did have to delay this show match. There were some scheduling difficulties with this show match. So originally this was supposed to be played a couple of months ago, and DutchArmy has been playing a decent amount of Kane's Wrath. He kind of had to get back into shape for this. Will end up just taking the oil derrick, so always a bit of a gamble. What are you going to do with those early Vindicators? You're always hoping to find some loose units or some more key targets, but in this case, killing the oil derrick, not a bad thing at all. DDF, he is going to be comfortable down here on the low ground. He is not going to be too worried about this because he sees it all coming and he's like, all right, well, that might just be a dead refinery. Maybe I just count that refinery as dead. He's going to try and save it. MCV moves out to the water, and there's going to be the laser lock. Vindicators going to be coming in. Bullfrogs not close enough to really keep the Vindicators away, so the hammer tank does go down. And yep, that's a dead refinery. DDF has been in this kind of a position before. He will be able to stop the jab from laser locking the super reactor. The ore collector will not escape, and these bears are going to get a second snack. Okay, maybe not. As the bullfrogs launch a terror drone into the middle of the map. This is a walled-up refinery there, so no luck for DDF. Bears do get cleaned up. One javelin remains, and that is really what DDF wanted to shut down, was the javelins. That high ground javelin laser lock can be very difficult to deal with, and I feel like maybe DDF is a little bit rusty. We have seen him quite a bit over the last 4 years, but not a lot in the last year. In the last 12 or 16 months, we have not seen very much DDF at all, and the GG comes out. Wow, that is not how I expected that one to go, but DutchArmy starts off with a bit of a base push turned into just javelins killing everything. And I thought DDF was going to be able to pivot. I thought he was going to be able to roll into something else, and he was not. So game 1 goes to DutchArmy. Game 1 may not have gone his way, but DDF is here for game 2, sticking with Soviets. DDF, a player that I got familiar with in, I don't know, 2020, 2021, around there, and lots of Soviet action. Lots of games versus Demon, and now, more recently, I've seen DDF more playing random, but for this show match, it appears that he has switched back to Soviets. So DutchArmy is a very... we have seen him play off faction, but he is a very stock standard allied player. He doesn't do a lot of switch-ups. He doesn't do a lot of random. He will play other things, maybe in team games or whatever, but generally speaking, tournaments, show matches, he's not switching it up to Empire or something like that. He is an allied player through and through. DDF choosing Soviets, so he's happy with the SVA matchup, at least for now. We'll have to see if this progresses, how he will choose to take it. He may indeed switch it up. DDF is a very powerful allied player as well, so he could very well switch it up into allies. We could see a little mirror matchup action going on. He could also try Empire, but that game one was looking very safe for DutchArmy. And game number two, Battlebase Beta, it is a map that is not necessarily as allied favored, or as strong for allies, I will say. Infinity Isle, some people have different opinions. I feel like most people say maybe it's allied advantaged, not necessarily like OP for allies, but a solid map for allies, and they have a lot of control, and with that MCV position in the middle, the walls don't always protect you. A couple of Riptides will be getting spotted out. Some early Dog and Bear Scouts have been all of the action we have seen thus far. Terror Drone tags those Riptides and says, hey, I see you. Third Refinery comes up for both players, and that's good for DDF to tag those Riptides, know that they're there as his third is coming up. So he's going to be happy about that. Bears camping outside of that oil derrick. For the most part, many of the buildings have been cleared out, not all of them, as DutchArmy doesn't want to have to deal with the high ground building or this other proximity building to the oil derrick. He has garrisoned a couple of other buildings around the map. And DDF, he hasn't gone super crazy with the garrisons, but I do like this spread. Always appreciate a player who spreads their units out nicely, gives themselves quite a bit of vision, quite a bit of map presence. That Peacekeeper, I'm not sure what he was hoping to accomplish, but DDF snuck him deep behind enemy lines and decided to just go for it. DutchArmy, rather. DDF, on the other hand, goes airfield first. Love to see it. We've seen Harlan recently really delaying that airfield, and Harlan wins a lot of games, so you can't really argue with that, but I appreciate a Soviet player going for an earlier airfield to give yourself those options. MiGs, Twin Blades, both are good depending on what you're going up against, and going up against allies, you never know when the switch up is going to happen. Airfield is out. Riptides still roaming around. 2 Riptides and a hydrofoil guarding this naval yard. So that's going to be difficult to take down unless you go Akula subs. But we also could just see a little bit of a satellite drop action later on over at that water expansion. That's a much safer way for a Soviet player to be able to deal with a water expansion that's guarded like that. Both players happy to play this one out, macro and slow. 4.5k a minute to 4.5k a minute. The 4th refinery timings are very, very similar. 3rd refinery timings were also very similar. Maybe DutchArmy has a slight advantage in those, but overall, the timings are very similar. Vindicator takes a little swoop out. Not a lot of harassment has happened one way or the other. And okay, the income graph starting to stabilize. They're both around 5k. I was seeing DDF's income was lagging a little bit behind DutchArmy's, and I was a little bit cautious. I was a little bit worried that one of his harvesters had been bugged, but it seems like we are fine. Apollo goes for the scout, looks around the map. Apollos, they have great vision, good speed, excellent scouts, and he does spot 2 MiGs on the deck, ready to go. That airfield is potentially going to be a dangerous thing for Dutch Army to have to deal with. A couple of hammer tanks at the front. Bullfrogs, Terror Drone, and a Twin Blade kind of leading the charge down the ramp. It's going to be Riptides. Do we have Apollos? No, it's just Vindicators. It's Vindicators into Cryocopters. So no Apollos to chase down any of these air units. We'll see how the Vindicators do. They swoop in. They are able to knock down basically nothing. Vindicator does end up going down. Oil Derrick gets eliminated. Both Vindicators down. And 3 Cryocopters are what stands between DDF and crushing this base. Hydrofoil is here. Apollo, or MiG, is going to be absorbing the first wave of damage. And the Hydrofoil is going to be chasing the rest of those units off. Toxin drop on top of the building. Nice way to clear that out. Multi-gunner turret gets deployed. Multi-gunner turret gets broken down basically immediately. It might kill one Bullfrog and actually gets a couple of shots off on a second Bullfrog. That multi-gunner turret has paid for itself, but the rest of the army from Dutch Army is going to have to lag a little bit behind. 4th refinery up. Naval yard still up. Not a ton of damage taken by Dutch Army, but a bit of damage in that oil derrick. Terror Drone runs right up to the Riptides and doesn't actually go for it. Cryo Shot gets called in, and it will be dodged easily there by DDF. Something that, if I see a Cryo Shot come in, I might have a little panic, and instead of dodging it nicely like DDF does, I might accidentally drive half of my units into it and then end up losing them. DDF doing the power move takes 5 refineries and then takes one away from his opponent as well. So it is going to be a 6 refinery Soviet player within a minute. And this is not a good place for Dutch Army to be when the opening has not gone how he wanted. Vindicators are hoping to stick around for a lot longer in this game than they actually have. Javs are here. Going to try and clear out the building. Peacekeepers and Javs easily able to break down that first building. Bear's going to be coming in here. If the roars come off, they can completely shut down all of these Javs. MiGs will be swooping in to hunt some of the Cryocopters. One falls, but the MiGs get chased away. Hammer tanks going toe-to-toe against the Guardians, and it's going to be the Shrink that allows Dutch Army to keep pushing forward. He would not have won that fight if not for the Shrink. Twin Blade coming back in. Javs are still here. One Guardian goes down, and the Hammer tanks not present on the front line. The Bullfrogs are actually what gets shrunk down. There is a Soviet army here. It just doesn't have a good answer for those Cryocopters just yet. Guardian tanks going to be getting leached down. One of them gets eliminated. A second one very low on health. Crusher Crane coming up to provide those repairs. Pretty much all of the Javelins have gone down. Twin Blade in the sky, unopposed, and now the Riptides will be torn apart. No Cryocopter nearby means it's an easy enough job for the Hammers. Not a big problem for them. And the IFV, it's so tiny. He can get away from that Harvester. Cryo Shot is going to be getting called in. This Harvester might be just barely outside of the range. Nope, it's not. It is not outside of the range of that Cryocopter. It does go, or that Cryo Shot, rather. It does go down. Apollo also here. Flak Cannon coming up as a response. DDF, pretty happy with how that last engagement went, but he's not going to be happy now that he sees Athena cannons out on the map. Dutch Army has gotten 2 Athena cannons, and that late game allied tech is extremely powerful. We'll see if he's actually able to find the kills that he wants. Oh, a fully heroic IFV. You do not want to be fighting that unless you absolutely have to, especially with Twin Blades. That is a Twin Blade killing specialist that is upgraded to heroic and has an Aegis shield behind it. Toxins or satellites going to be coming in, and it looks like it will be the toxin drop on top of these units. All the Peacekeepers run for the hills, and they do manage to escape. Good way to zone out an army is to utilize that toxin drop. Hammer tanks reforming the front line. A couple of them have the double gun upgrade. Terror drones? I'm not sure what their plan is here. Just going to tag some of those units. Akula sub is here, and the Akula sub can deal with the hydrofoil. Oh, he dodges it just in time. Of course, it does still impact the refinery, but it at least saves the hydrofoil, and that is really what Dutch Army wanted. Hydrofoil with that weapons jammer is so annoying to deal with when you just have one unit. Twin Blade's going to be knocking down that Civ structure. I guess he just wants a little bit of space. And abandon the front, I guess. I mean, you can lose this refinery and still be up against your opponent. And I think the hydrofoil... Oh, it took another shot. Hydrofoil didn't actually go down, but it also wasn't able to save that refinery. So it's going to be one refinery for one refinery. These two players taking it nice and slow. But now they're kicking it into high gear. IFVs show up, Apollos as well. The MiGs have the superior numbers, but the IFVs are so powerful on the ground. One IFV does manage to survive. Two Twin Blades extremely low on health. Just a couple of points between them, and the IFV goes golden. He gets himself a star, and he gets himself some extra damage versus any future Twin Blades. Two refineries shut down by DDF, but he hasn't dealt with the army of Dutch. This is a powerful allied army. It doesn't have a lot of health points. It doesn't have a lot of HP or armor, but it puts out a huge amount of damage. The Javs, the Mirages will absolutely fry anything in front of them. Cryocopters, Athena cannons, everything. Well, the cryocopters are pretty tanky. Everything is a bit of a glass cannon there in that allied arsenal. Mirage tank going to be able to take down a couple of bullfrogs. And Hammer tanks moving in. They get one Apollo on the deck. Dutch Army not able to get that out into the sky. Twin Blades finally have free reign over the middle of the base, and it's going to be a tier 3 allied MCV that is under threat. Perfect sandwich here. The cryo shot going to be coming in, and DDF does get trapped. His hammer tank does go down. A second hammer tank frozen on the ramp and will be blasted to smithereens, or maybe just locked down right there. The escape! The escape with the Twin Blades. The Apollos come in for the kill, and the Bullfrogs are going to guard the rest of the units. The Apollos all go down, and the Twin Blades survive with the Hammer tank escape. That is not something I think I have ever seen in a competitive match, especially not on something like Battlebase Beta. DDF bringing the top level plays. And yeah, what is this Mirage tank gonna do? Not against Twin Blades. You're not doing anything. Hammer tank is here. The Hammer tank can take the IFV pretty easy, but maybe not the Mirage tank quite as much. Hammer tank attacking those walls for just a moment. Cryocopter is going to be getting shut down. One of them gets eliminated. The others are survive for now, but are very, very low health. Dutch Army decides to create two war fronts. He's like, if you kill my main base, I can kill yours. One Jav, is that it for anti-air? All of the IFVs are back at home. Athena cannon goes down, and a couple of these Mirage tanks, they are powerful, but they can't last forever. 4 Javs, they make a run for the building, but they just don't make it. And now this entire army has a clock on it. The clock is called a Twin Blade, and these rockets are rearming at an alarming rate. The war factory goes down, the refinery goes down, but every single Mirage gets eliminated. Trades out a couple of Hammer tanks who get dropped into their doom, but that is all that they get. Mirage tanks are not the only killers in this game. It's a fully heroic Athena cannon that can reach that refinery from land. Twin Blades gonna make short work of that Athena cannon. DDF and Dutch Army have gutted each other's main bases, but undoubtedly DDF has gotten the better end of the trade. The Tier 3 MCV is about the only thing that has been preserved from Dutch Army's infrastructure a minute ago. Terror Drone gets the kill on that Mirage tank with the help of, I guess, a flak trooper or a conscript inside of that building. Dutch Army never given up hope. I'm not sure how much hope a 2K per minute Allied player has against an 8.8K per minute Soviet player, even one who is floating 5.5K. I think he quite literally doesn't have the production facilities to spend it all. He's got 2 airfields and a barracks. Oh no, he did rebuild the war factory. It's over here at the expansion, and it is mass twin blades. Apollos are good, IFVs are good, but they are not that good, as DDF puts a point on the board, and boy oh boy, he finally roars to life here in game number 2 after a lethargic game number 1. He wakes up, shakes himself, and just smashes Dutch Army's economy and takes it to the late game, smashing Dutch Army's base. We all have fears in life. We all have pet peeves. And one of my pet peeves is when I arrange a show match with really good players and then one of them just underperforms and it's just like, blah. And I was really worried that was going to happen after game number 1. But I feel like game number 2 delivered. It was a little bit slower paced. It was macro oriented. It was about those bigger economic plays. And I like seeing that kind of stuff. I don't need everything to be, you know, ultra fast paced with an airfield first and a rush. So I like having a little mix here and there. Cancels the war factory, goes second refinery instead. Meanwhile, what do we got? A naval yard? What are you cooking, Dutch? Is this naval yard for an engineer and a couple of peacekeepers? No Javs so far. He's going 3 PKs. Where's the Javs? 4 PKs. Okay. All right. I guess no Javs. But I feel like game number 2, we started delivering on the promise of the premise. We've got Dutch Army versus DDF, and it's not just Dutch Army airfield rushing and slamming DDF into the ground. DDF faltered in game number 1, just was not ready for it, and some of that comes down to could have just been building placement, like he wasn't quite thinking as much when he placed some of his buildings, and if he had placed them differently, then suddenly that game looks very different. Some of it could be he just doesn't like Infinity Isle, and he did a bad build, and then he was like, well, I'm not going to try and grind this one out against all odds, and I'm going to quit. But we're back onto Fire Island. We've seen this map many times. We've got ourselves a naval yard sell-off into a tier 2 MCV, and yes, that is an airfield right there. So we got ourselves some cryo potential as this progress bar races to the... Well, okay, Dutch Army just ran out of money as I said that. Races to the end, and a cryocopter emerges where... Oh, okay. So DDF is liking this War Factory super reactor into airfield. Oh! I don't know what's going on. I really hope this is a MiG first. Please be a MiG first, because if it's not a MiG first, okay, Cryocopter has been revealed, which means this can be canceled. It is going to be a MiG first regardless. DDF has a bit of a cash boost. He did not go Crusher Crane and then Crusher MCV. He went for the faster option, which is the MCV cell. And I'm not sure if maybe he saw something with his bear that tipped him off or what. But in this case, this oil derrick will now change hands for the 3rd time. It got captured for the first time and then captured by Dutch Army and now captured back by DDF. So it will be 2 refineries oil derrick for both players for the current moment. Double cryocopter for Dutch Army. It kind of means that he can lose his refineries, and as long as he's got a couple of units and some really crisp micro, these 2 cryocopters can serve him very well with very limited economy. One of those things that it's just one of those kinds of units. It is a powerhouse unit that in the right hands is absolutely incredible. Right out of the gate, we have got a push through the middle of the map for DDF. A little bit of waffling. I think he saw those 2 cryocopters and he's like, okay, I can't just go crazy. I'm going to have to play this one out a little bit slow. I'm going to have to play this one out perhaps a little bit cautious. Terror Drone gets the lockdown, and Bears get an amazing roar. That's 5-6 peacekeepers that got locked down there, but unfortunately for DDF, only one of the peacekeepers went down. That was almost a complete shutdown of the infantry of Dutch Army, but he saved it. He managed to salvage that situation, and the entire attack gets called off. DDF decides not to engage. He does have an Apollo all up in his business. He is going to try and chase that down, but it will manage to escape. The MiGs not finding the kill that they wanted. Dutch Army, he gets the glancing blow for the first moment, and then he gets a third refinery as well. So he may have lost the oil derrick, but he's at least got that third refinery up and running. Tier 2 on that MCV also means he can go into Naval Yard or War Factory. Oh, he's running away. He's a little bit worried about that terror drone, but if you go into Naval Yard, you've instantly got assault destroyers. You can utilize that black hole armor, and Bullfrog is going to be kind of leading the charge here, trying to keep the cryocopters away. It's going to be one cryocopter shrink on that hammer tank. It's a very awkward engage. Once the cryocopters shrink the hammer tanks, they just aren't very effective versus these units. They can't go for the crush. They can't do very well versus Riptides. And double cryocopter, they go super deep into enemy territory. That's a mistake from Dutch Army. And he doesn't get totally caught because one of the cryocopters does manage to escape. The Twin Blade does end up going down, and the multi-gunner turret has to be sold off. It's 4 refineries for Dutch Army, but they're not all 4 working. He's not quite in as strong of a position as he would like to be. And that's another thing. No toxin drops coming in from DDF. No cash back. I'm not sure if Terror Drone Surprise still works or not, considering if he already bought it. Shrink does come in, but there's still 3 hammer tanks that are not shrunk at all. Bullfrog is going to be kind of body blocking, and basically every single javelin goes down. A couple of peacekeepers do manage to survive, as well as the Riptides, but it's going to be a dead Harvester, and the cryocopters just cannot engage with these Bullfrogs playing guard dog for these hammer tanks. 3 hammer tanks will be able to escape, and that Twin Blade did. That's not a Twin Blade, that's a MiG. Swinging into the party, the terror drone goes down, and the Apollos will chase away that MiG. 1 cryocopter down just as a second cryocopter joins the party. Dutch Army is so incredibly happy that he got up to 4 refineries. Replacing those cryocopters is a lot more feasible once you've got that better economy. For a second, I saw 2 red dots on the minimap. I was like, oh boy, did he sneak a jab inside of DDF's base, because that would be killer. But no, it's 2 Apollos. They are watching over that airfield. Hammer tank survives. No repairs for that hammer tank, though. Bullfrog's chasing away the cryocopters once again. These hammer tanks getting extremely low on health. They're going to try and leech some of this. So DDF gives away a hammer tank. No reason for that guy to go forward. Even leeching an observation post or leeching the oil derrick would have been a better option for that hammer. Send it back home. Leech your own refinery. Who cares? But all of those are better options than just sending it to die. Hammer tank, leech beam, absolutely. Oh, stop. You switched to attack modes. Absolutely critical at this juncture. Uh-oh. DDF is about to have 2 problems. Speedy little boys heading his way. If he doesn't have Twin Blades rebuilt and ready to go, which I don't think he does. He rebuilt his MCV. Oh, that is a lot of cash down the drain into a 3rd refinery. Hammer tanks just need to buy some time now. And it looks like Dutch Army is now aware of this. He flew over it with Apollos. Terror Drone gets the infect on the Prospector, and 3 cryocopters show up. Are they going to... Okay, I was like, are they going to freeze that Harvester? Where's the... Okay, there's the Riptide coming in. He might be moments too late. Oh, the Riptide might be able to find an angle. No, he can't find an angle. A perfect body block there from that barracks. And the Harvester was not called off the line immediately. So the Terror Drone... Terror Drone? What is going on? Okay, he is going to freeze the Harvester. And the Terror Drone will eventually die as well. A little bit of a messy engage there. Love the attempt by Dutch Army, but DDF outsmarts it. That's one of the joys of having an MCV, is that you can build things. One of the great parts of having an MCV is that build queue. And we see it used there to body block that one MiG shot. He's like, yep, I'm just gonna leave. All right, I did my work. Throws one can at him from the couch. Just chucks a beer can at that cryocopter, and then is like, I missed him. Oh well. Goes back home. Apollo's once again getting the scout. Dutch Army throughout at least these 2 games, didn't need to do a lot of scouting in game number 1, but through the 2 games has done quite a good job of keeping an eye almost everywhere on the map with those Apollos. Didn't help him win game number 2, but he is doing a pretty good job of scouting the map, always keeping an eye on what DDF is doing. DDF kind of lost an opportunity there to get a Guardian tank out in the middle of the map. Could have trapped it there with that tow drone stasis and locked it down, eventually killing it, but ended up letting it go, and now it made it back home. Hasn't actually been repaired up. Decent amount of infantry. Like a lot of Allied Soviet engagements in the mid and late game, it's going to come down to that micro. The dogs, the bears, the javs, the peacekeepers, the hammer tanks, and the guardian tanks, all of the body blocking that comes in. This is 3 MiGs versus 2 Apollos. The bullfrogs are showing up as well, but the Vindicator is fast enough, and the Vindicator will die on exit, but none of the cryocopters are eliminated. Okay, I spoke a little bit too soon. The split comes in, and DDF hunts down the weak ones, gets the lockdown on 2 of the 3, gets all 3. That actually was almost worth it for DDF, considering he got the reset on the cryocopters. A full reset of cryocopters. Did he sell off? He crushed his MCV, didn't he? No, he didn't. Okay, so he does still have access to toxins, satellite drop, whatever it is that he chooses to go with. MCV deploys. IFV is right there. He's like, you're not taking a 4th refinery over here. You don't want to play the water refinery game? Fine, but you can't have a land refinery either, as Dutch Army keeps eyes on DDF's expansions. Crusher Crane, also a great option just because you get 1,000 credits back for a harvester. So the harvester obviously comes with the refinery. You get it, quote-unquote, for free. So if the refinery goes down and the harvester survives, you just crush the harvester and you get half of the money that you need to rebuild the harvester. Satellites. Oh, that's so sad. That's a tier 1 satellite and it can't pick up tier 2 units. I don't even know that it can pick up harvesters. It didn't even make it over to the harvester. That was so disappointing for DDF. You need the tier 2 satellite or the tier 3 satellite to be able to deal with those armies. Bullfrogs on the front line. Tesla Trooper gets eliminated, and the Bear Roar was magnificent, but it just didn't matter as Dutch Army crushes forward. It is going to be a dead MiG over top of the base. Mirage tanks reforming their front line, and it's a GG coming out for DDF. He hung on for a long time after that MCV cell early on. Dutch Army with the economic advantage for the entire game. Okay, they were locked for the first 5 minutes or so, but Dutch Army with the economic advantage after that. 54K in total resources gathered. And that will do it for game number 3. Dutch Army swings back into the lead. And that sends us to Cabana Republic for game number 4. We started out with a 1-1, and now we are at another score deficit for DDF. Maybe this will be his time to even things up, make it 2-2, stop Dutch Army from getting to that match point scenario. Barracks up. DDF happy to delay his second refinery for just a moment, and instead goes Naval Yard. Not something I remember seeing very often. I feel like there used to be a goofy Stingray rush that you would go Naval Yard super fast, but somehow I don't think DDF is going for some kind of Stingray all-in here on Cabana Republic. That would be pretty funny to see. I would like to see it, but it does give you the option to build bullfrogs, costs less than a war factory, keeps a little bit more cash in the bank, and I think DDF is really just wanting to keep an eye on this Allied MCV and airfield, know exactly what Dutch Army has planned for this game. Dog gets the better of the engagement over there in the northern waters. Bear gets cleaned up there, and it is a tier 2 MCV. This is going to be cryocopters right there. The first cryocopter emerges sub 2 minutes. There's the shrink down. You're going the wrong way, bud. The turret push is in the other direction. So Dutch Army is either going for some kind of 5-brain turret push around the wrong side, or he's actually just going for a third refinery up here on the high ground. He doesn't want to play the close expansion game, which occasionally, very rarely, you will see both players take this water expansion as their third, and they end up close together there in the south, as opposed to you take the northern expansion, still gives you lots of space, and it does actually get spotted out pretty perfectly by DDF. Both players, they spot each other. The cryocopter heads over to DDF's expansion. Dutch Army knows what DDF is doing. DDF knows what Dutch Army is doing. Everyone is aware of everyone else. Both players doing a decent job garrisoning up all of the structures on the map. Okay, maybe not a decent job, as Dutch Army hasn't grabbed some of these buildings over here. Not a huge strategic move. Can be nice just to have a little bit of anti-anything pressure. If you stick 2 Javs inside of there, helps with twin blades. Is this just a dead collector? No, the bullfrogs are here. Okay, bullfrogs are here well in time. I'm not actually sure what Dutch Army's plan is there. The Vindicator is an entire map away from this ore collector. And maybe if the Vindicator was closer, you know, a couple of bullfrogs, you can still dive on that harvester, get the kill regardless. But in this case, the Vindicators were just too far away. He does get the nice timing on dropping the bombs on top of the refinery, and the harvester gets the splash damage there. And Dutch Army is going to play Naval Yard, possibly into War Factory here at his expansion. Goes into a barracks, actually, and shrinks down the MCV immediately. He's going to be able to quickly move it somewhere else on the map. Maybe he wants to take the northern expansions. Maybe he does want to take the close expansion, drop a War Factory in the middle, and then eventually tech up to tier 3, go Athena cannons as well. Pretty typical allied stuff. But for the current moment, both players are happy to again play this one out a little bit slowly. It's 4.5 minutes, and we have seen very little engagement. Yeah, there was an opportunity for a Vindicator drive-by with that cryocopter, but it didn't actually happen. They've mostly just been scouting each other, getting the lay of the land, and it's certainly not a Stingray rush, but we do have a couple of Stingrays reporting for duty out here on the water. The first kill of the game. Not actually the first kill of the game, but I think that is the first building to go down. Have been some other kills already. A couple of Stingrays, a couple of bullfrogs in the south. They will skate right past this ore refinery and not realize that it is there. DDF definitely wants to get eyes on this. There is a relatively easy way to harass utilizing Akula subs a decent ways away from this ore refinery. 2 Akula subs with those ultra torpedoes. You're not killing a refinery fast, but it's pretty safe. You can run away from assault destroyers. Oh, those Javs popping out of that Riptide. Stingray is going to be harassing in the main base. There are a couple of Vindicators here. There are a couple of MiGs also in the sky. Cryocopter and Apollo get tagged by the Bullfrogs. And for now, the Harvester is going to get back to work as the Riptides chase everything else away. Twin Blade through the middle of the map. DDF decides to go for the northern expansions. He wants to go full-on 5 refinery mode. He doesn't care about any of this 4 refinery split stuff. He wants 5 refineries locked in. Twin Blade going to be able to fire a couple of shots. Ooh, Twin Blade takes a couple of shots. And at some point, I do expect a couple of Twin Blades to swing through and kill off that oil derrick. For now, second refinery is going to be finishing up momentarily. Cryo shot might be coming in. Nope, flak cannon deployed to keep away those Vindicators. And the MiGs catching the Vindicators on the return to base and the Vindicator will give his life, but he will get the kill. DDF starts up that Harvester quite quickly, gets it right back to work very soon. And yeah, you got 5 refineries, and soon you will have 5 working refineries, but not quite yet. Still a 4 refinery, no oil derrick boy. DDF, his economy hurting just a little bit, but once he gets up to those 5 refineries, once he kills off his opponent's oil derrick, he's going to be feeling a lot more comfortable. Bears come in. They do kind of force the Javs to get inside of that Riptide, but the Riptides will deal with everything else quite quickly, quite easily, and Dutch Army does not have 4 working refineries either, so a hit for a hit. The Harvester has survived for Dutch Army, but not necessarily for long. We'll see how long he's actually able to keep that Harvester alive. The Apollos could be nearby, but no, the MiGs might just get a free kill here. 1 MiG trades out its life. 2 MiGs trade out their lives for it while the engagement continues in the middle of the map. Stingrays going down, Riptides hunting for those targets, and they do manage to clean up a couple, but this has been a huge delay in any kind of mid-game pressure from Dutch Army. Does DDF not have a war factory? I did not realize how much of a delay in war factory this was for DDF. He has gone crazy delay on that war factory. The naval yard in the south pumping out a couple of Akula subs, but not putting out a lot of pressure. Meanwhile, in the north, it's going to be the Riptides that are putting out the pressure. Nothing starts out of here, so it's going to be Twin Blades to try and respond to that attack. Airfield is fresh and ready there in the middle. MiGs show up first, but they can't do anything. This is going to be a lot of damage on that refinery, but not a lot on the Harvester, unless the Dolphins can actually finish everything up. The Riptide going to be going for the Harvester, splitting the damage across the targets there as the Dolphins move back in to finish it up. But the Twin Blades are the ever-present defense of that refinery. Hydrofoil shows up, perhaps a moment too late, but at least there is a Stingray here. And if the Hydrofoil is focused on the Stingray, the Dolphins can delete that refinery. Hydrofoil switches back to its gun and does manage to escape for now. 1 refinery knocked completely out by Dutch Army. 2nd Naval Yard has to be deployed, and this is a bit of awkward building placement, but DDF has to do what he has to do. MCV makes its way back to land. Harvester is actually going to go for the recycle, and I'm worried that that's what the MCV has also already done. No, okay, the MCV made its way all the way to the south, and DDF, he wants 6 refineries. He believes 6 refineries is the answer, and we're still just waiting for DDF to kill off that oil derrick. Maybe he won't have to, as he sends an engineer over there. A couple of IFVs are here. They're going to be tanking the shots from the Stingray and from the Twin Blades, hoping to trade out with the Twins. Javs inside of that building, helping out this IFV, and the IFV survives. The Twin Blades do as well, and the oil derrick changes hands once again. Apollo skating around the Dutch Army side of the map. Dutch desperately not wanting to drop another game and let the map score even itself up. 2 Stingrays are here, but there are 2 Hydrofoils as well. And is he calling in toxins on his own building to try and kill the Dolphins? He is indeed. It's kind of just working against him here as the cryocopters show up. Twin Blades and MiGs may be needed to respawn, but they're being kept at bay by the Hydrofoils. Can't knock down the units on the water, so the air units cannot engage anything else. Well, I guess the Naval Yard is safe for now. That is one way to try and keep the Naval Yard safe. And yeah, the Dolphins are worried about getting poisoned by the toxins there. Akula sub trying to trade out with this assault destroyer, but it's not really going to work as that Akula sub goes back down underwater, and a Stingray does get cleaned up by the IFVs on land. Everything on the water getting cleaned up by Dutch Army. He's got this 6 Dolphin hit squad plus Hydrofoils plus cryocopters, and it seems to be doing the trick. Twin Blades once again going to try and jump on these IFVs. Finally, the Twin Blades will get the kills, and with a last shot, that IFV got 1 kill back. Dutch Army, he controls the seas, at least in the north. Twin Blades and Bullfrogs will be able to clean up a good chunk of this infantry. That's a number of Javs and a couple of Peacekeepers as well. That's maybe 2 grand worth of infantry all put together. 1,200 of Javs and maybe 800 of Peacekeepers. So it's a decent chunk of change to lose in infantry. Assault Destroyer shows up. Conyard is kind of unprotected here. We'll see what Dutch Army is actually able to accomplish. He might just get this jumped on by Twin Blades. Apollos show up. They're ready to tear these Twin Blades apart, but the Bullfrogs are underneath. MiGs show up for Overwatch as well, and the Assault Destroyer will eventually go down. Meanwhile, the Dolphins dealing with the Naval Yard back at the main base of DDF, and the Apollos get the drop on the MiGs. 2 Apollos pay the price, though, as they get eliminated by the Bullfrogs, and now things are getting quite messy for both players. Assault Destroyer cancels a lot of the missiles, but it's more and more Twin Blades showing up, so if these cryocopters want to do anything, they better find some ground units to start harassing. They do manage to lock down 1 Akula sub, shrink it down, take it out, but there's actually nothing there to kill it just yet. The Dolphins will have to come back home. And that is 3 heroic Dolphins returning from their excursion. I might even stop by that MCV and just hammer it with a couple of shots. Try and take some of the health down on that. Run away! It's Akula subs! 3 Akula subs. If they fire those Ultra Torpedoes, you better hope that you're good at dodging. And the Dolphins are pretty good at dodging. MCV moves back onto land. He doesn't want to have to try and fight those Dolphins. I don't want to fight Dolphins. Hydrofoil weapons jams 1 of the Akula subs. The other Ultra Torpedoes must not be ready quite yet. And there's going to be the Shrink Ray coming in. Dutch Army is rolling the seas here as he rolls over DDF's every naval expansion. Nothing on water is safe from this guy. Maybe not even on land as Peacekeepers start tearing down that oil derrick. And it's going to be just a couple of Akula subs left over. Hydrofoil ends up going down. Apollos show up. So do the Bullfrogs. But the Bullfrogs are easy for the Dolphins to deal with. The refinery has gone down. The MCV has fled. Only the Naval Yard remains, and that has gone down as well. The cryocopters will be crushed. And the Bullfrogs manage to escape. The Twin Blades over top of everything, and DDF snatches a stalemate from the jaws of defeat. He manages to get one back on Dutch Army. He's at least stopped the naval threat, and boy, that Bullfrog is very glad that that Civ structure is absorbing the attention of these units, causing them to focus their attention slightly north as these 2 Peacekeepers maybe go down. Those IFVs, that's a lot of IFVs. You do not want to be engaging that with Twin Blades if you don't have to. He's going to try and get the jump on it. He manages to get 2 of them. A third might go down. Drawing them into the multi-gunner turret is also a good move for Dutch Army, and it's 5 remaining Twin Blades. Aircraft carrier has left port and has started making bombing runs against DDF's main base. Another Twin Blade goes down. The MiGs as well, taking a lot of damage there. You just can't escape the IFVs. Their range against air is just too good. Toxins have burned out that building, and Dutch, make sure you cancel any future orders. You don't want any of these jabs being donated to the DDF Defense Fund. That's just a dead Bullfrog. MiG shaving a couple of missiles, taking them away from that Twin Blade. GG gets called. Dutch Army kept that front line moving forward. Athena cannons and Mirage tanks breaking open DDF's base, and that will secure the 3rd victory for Dutch Army. It is a long road to victory. To overcome your opponent, you will need industrial strength. Welcome to game number 5. I had to re-record that intro because the first 2 times I made that pun, Red Alert 3 immediately crashed. I don't know if that was Red Alert 3 trying to tell me not to say that, but we made it past the 30-second mark this time, so I guess I am allowed to make that pun. I guess I can say that in the intro of this game. Welcome to Industrial Strength for game number 5. And look at that. We don't have any double, triple wall up. We don't have any kind of airfield first going on from Dutch Army. It is barracks and 2 refineries. So kind of just a normal build from Dutch Army. A lot of Allied players will go for some kind of fast airfield, some kind of super wall-in on this map, especially versus a Soviet player. But DDF, he doesn't have any of that stuff to worry about. He actually goes super reactor before War Factory. So he's going to move his MCV. He's just surviving on the barracks for the current moment. And he has a decent amount of scouting. He's got a decent amount of vision around the map. He's going to try and put some pressure on the 3rd refinery location of Dutch Army. We've seen that in the past. I think more recently, Harlan was the one who was able to do a lot over in this corner of the map and put a lot of pressure on the 3rd refinery of your opponent, really forcing them to waste way more resources defending that location than it is actually worth that early on in the game. 3rd refinery before War Factory. Super reactor, 3rd refinery. It is, in a lot of ways, a greedy, greedy game for DDF. And he doesn't have a lot of space left to be greedy. Airfield does come out. Walls do end up getting canceled. There's a decent amount of wallage already up and operational for Dutch Army. So he's not terribly, terribly worried about this refinery. He does now have a Vindicator out, which gives him a huge amount of additional help in dealing with infantry pressure from a Soviet player. He will just get the kill on the Scouting Bear as his first move. Meanwhile, the Scouting Bears were able to clean up that dog that was on the high ground. So Dutch Army no longer has that free scout, and 3 Peacekeepers kind of just given away for free by Dutch Army. Bit unfortunate for Dutch that he loses those, but at the very least... Oh, no, Dutch Army has decided to nuke the garage in the middle of the map. But at the very least, Dutch Army did get vision on what was coming out of the barracks. So even though he did lose all of those Peacekeepers, he at least got a little bit of vision with them. Not great, but at least it is something. Decent number of flak troopers. They might actually just head into these buildings. Well, maybe not. I guess these buildings aren't going to be long for this world because Dutch Army loves breaking down buildings. If there's anything Dutch Army loves, it is apparently breaking down buildings. Dog does get spotted over there at the water expansion. DDF has been spotted expanding to these northwest locations. Meanwhile, the southeast locations will be taken by Dutch Army, and we might kind of have a 5 refinery no rush game on our hands. Both of these players, for the most part, playing a lot of these games out macro oriented, going a little bit slower. Really, Infinity Isle with that push through the middle of the map by Dutch Army, that's been the only one that has been an outlier in terms of general tone and style. That's one dead Twin Blade, but the other Twin Blades do manage to unload their flak troopers before the IFVs can kill them. 2nd refinery up and running for, well, Dutch Army, but not quite for DDF. He's going to be starting that 2nd refinery out there on the water, but not quite finishing it up just yet. 5 refinery, no rush. I guess that was the agreement between these players. Oil derricks still up for both as well, so their economies are going to be sitting very comfortably. Dutch Army with a very slight advantage. I think his faster 4th and 5th refineries make up for that, and I think he also had a faster oil derrick at the beginning of the game. Multi-gunner turret gets deployed. Bears get a decent roar off, but a lot of these Peacekeepers already have their riot shield, so it's going to be up to the conscripts to knock them down. Ore refinery taking a decent amount of damage. It can still be saved at this point. Vindicators going up for round 2, and the flak troopers have not changed their targets. There's going to be a barracks to body block. Both of the Vindicators do survive. One Twin Blade ends up going down, but the pressure will continue. Another multi-gunner turret gets deployed. Bear gets the roar on the dog, who got the bark on the bear, but finally the this building has been broken. Conscripts step on out, but it's going to be Vindicators versus Flak Troopers, and the Flak Troopers mostly win that fight, but not entirely, as the Peacekeeper does get a snipe on that dog trying to engage with those Flaks. A couple of Twin Blades on Overwatch. One Riptide going to be going for a harass on the north side of the map. Will be able to clean up one of the Harvesters, but won't be able to contend with that Stingray. Multi-gunner turret holding down that area, but what is the next move for Dutch Army? It's going to be more multi-gunner turrets, trying to lock down a bigger and bigger area, force that Soviet player back just a little bit. Airfield is, I think, going to be the next focus for both players. More Twin Blades, more MiGs, more Apollos, more Vindicators from both players. I really am expecting to see cryocopters at some point, but for now it is a Tier 2 MCV and a Tier 2 Naval Yard. So the reposition of the MCV hasn't happened, or the rebuild of the airfield hasn't happened, which is sort of what I was expecting from Dutch Army. Both players on that 5 refinery economy, but they are spending basically every dollar that comes into their bank account. Oil derrick has finally been knocked down. Dutch Army gets some positive traction there, at least. Kulisab absolutely demolishes that Riptide, but there are 3 Riptides ready for the counterattack. A couple of Stingrays are here, possibly just hoping for the overcharge. Vindicators also moving in defensively, but no Twin Blades to match the Vindicators. Flak Cannon does a little bit of damage, but it's going to be up to these Riptides to break down this building. This is where Twin Blades would be fantastic to stop these Riptides. Low power mode for DDF. He's a little bit overdrawn as he finishes up something somewhere, and he does have a war factory over there at his 3rd refinery location. MCV still not in range of that airfield, and this is now a Tier 3 MCV, so it's going to be aircraft carriers, the possibility of Athena cannons, and the possibility of Mirage tanks as well. But still, no rebuild of the airfield. I'm really surprised by Dutch Army that he hasn't gone for any kind of cryocopter from this kind of a position. Vindicator's going to be moving in. They do get a couple of bombs onto the refinery, but mostly it's about clearing out that Stingray. Riptides are maybe just going to die to these Twin Blades. They're going to have to try and trade their lives out. Apollo steps forward, and the Apollo is just going to tank a couple of shots and try and go for the kill. Power plant to body block. Last Riptide doesn't get the kill. Reverse as he tries to just get away from that refinery. The Harvester still healthy as anything. Not really bothered by all of the attacks that have been going on. Hammer tanks starting to engage. Peacekeepers won't be able to stay in this building forever, and Riptides, they're not the only threat for these hammer tanks. It's going to be the Vindicators cleaning up 2 hammers at the start of this fight. And DDF just wants to clear out those buildings, but he's going to have to clear out a lot more than just the buildings as the 2nd aircraft carrier shows up to this attack location. Ore refinery is low on health. Not going to be a lot of volleys left to knock that thing down. DDF, he's going to try and take over the north side of the map, but he's going to need to do some big damage to Dutch Army. Flak Troopers will be able to get a kill. Oh, all of the Vindicators escape. Pretty much perfectly done there by Dutch Army. And he does manage to keep all 3 Vindicators alive. Trades out with a couple of those Flak Troopers. Twin Blades not really present here with the IFVs so close. No, the Twin Blade actually survived. I thought they were both doomed to die as the Vindicators come back in, swing through, kill a couple more Twin Blades, get the Athena cannon. No, the Mirage tank gets that kill as that terror drone has been cleaned up, and Dutch Army wins yet another game. And we're on to Temple Prime for game number 6. Dutch Army gaining a bigger and bigger lead in the map score. And for now, DDF puts up a good fight every game, but it's just not enough. A couple of good matches in there, but Dutch Army always pulls through in the end. Bear comes in. Oh, the Peacekeepers both deny the bear kill, and the Engineer is kept safe for now. DDF and Dutch Army going very much toe-to-toe in a lot of these games. So many of them have been so close. But every single time, Dutch Army just sneaks out the win. And the map, the scoreline, just doesn't quite tell the whole story of this series. Bear will clean up the dog and does deny any further scouting. Engineer, so close. Oh, he does get locked down, but fortunately, the dog does get cleaned. Oh, no. DDF! Dutch Army. Was that intentional? I don't know. I don't know if that was lag or if that was Dutch Army. You know, sometimes units are a little bit janky here in Command & Conquer. They're a little bit don't do what you tell them. Sometimes there are weird delays when you give orders. And in this case, I'm not sure what just happened. Dutch Army may have actually just let that engineer live. Didn't get the kill with the dog. Vindicator going to be crossing the map. DDF moves his MCV as well. Temple Prime, not a map that we see super often, but obviously he wants to avoid Snowplow as well. Although maybe I nixed Snowplow from the map pool. I don't 100% remember what I wrote all those months ago when this was originally planned versus, I think Harlan? I think it was Dutch Army versus... No, maybe it wasn't Harlan. Maybe it was someone else. But we've got ourselves a Temple Prime game regardless. Not any of the variants. Oh, that Peacekeeper! What a hero of the people. Kills a bear, kills a terror drone as well. And now the Naval Yard is ready to go. Dutch Army immediately packs up his MCV, heads for the hills. Airfield and Naval Yard both up and running for Dutch Army. DDF, on the other hand, he's got his third refinery cooking here in the middle of the map. He's decided to go for the more typical location, the more straightforward location. And again, this is one of those maps where if you go for both players, rather, if they both go for the middle of the map locations, it is very close quarters. It is just one screen away is how close you are to your opponent in that case. But Dutch Army, at least initially, went out to the water for his third, which means there is a little bit more space between these players, and, well, maybe he's about to freeze that space right now. Vindicators coming in. Vindicators, they're just going to drop their bombs. They don't even care. They're going for that refinery, and they are not worried about anything. Riptides finally break free from the stasis of that, or from that terror drone, and the Peacekeepers will eventually be shut down. They have nearly killed off that ore refinery, of course, with the help of 4 Vindicators, which is no small amount of bombs. 4th refinery up and running for Dutch Army. His economy is looking very solid. 4 refineries plus an oil derrick. And Dutch Army, he has not been getting outpaced on the economy front for the most part. He has been keeping up and keeping ahead of DDF in most of these games. Maybe he's lagging behind a little bit here or there, but I think other than that Battlebase beta game, he has been keeping pace with DDF's economy pretty much every single time. The harassment hasn't been super heavy from either player, but they have both been going for those big economy plays. Hammer Tank's going to be showing up. Riptide will get locked down. Riptide will get shot up by DDF. And Dutch Army, he has a little bit of awkwardness to worry about, but Multi-Gunner Turret is going to help deal with that. Terror Drone goes down. Vindicator's going to be able to come in, and they might trade out some of their lives against these Bullfrogs, but they get both of the Hammer Tanks, and that is what they wanted. Terror Drone down, both of the Hammer Tanks down, and the Twin Blade will be able to get a little bit of damage on this Prospector, but it's not going to be the end of the world for Dutch Army. A couple of Apollos could be tangoing with a couple of MiGs there in the middle of the map. Cryocopters, I believe, still not present in this game. Yeah, that's still a Tier 1 airfield, and Dutch Army, he's going Guardian tanks, he's going Tier 2 stuff at the War Factory, but not at the airfield. It is not very often that you see an Allied player bomb refineries as consistently as Dutch Army is. You've got the Vindicators. If you've got the time, you might as well do the damage. And now finally the airfield is being rebuilt. Very centrally here in the middle of the map. Very quick refuel, rearm for those Vindicators. And the temple has been desecrated. It has been destroyed there in the middle of the map. Both of the oil derricks still around. So much of the fighting has been centered on the middle of the map, this central structure. And instead, not so much has been around the edges. Cryoshock fires off. Vindicators do some damage to the hammer tank as well. Not a lot of easy repairs for these hammer tanks, so that damage tends to stick around. Harvester is dead, but it has been restarted. And by shaving down these hammer tank numbers, Dutch Army has ensured that there is not an overwhelming force of armor waiting for him from DDF. DDF does still have 4 hammer tanks, so it is a serious amount, but one of them is very, very close to death. Riptide going to be moving forward. Cryocopter gets the shrink, and DDF is just going for it. He is hoping to turn something out of this engagement, but that's Peacekeepers, Javs, Guardians, and Riptides with Cryocopters. That is not a good engagement for DDF, and that will do it. Dutch Army comes close to the clean sweep, but doesn't quite get it. 5-1 being the scoreline as Dutch Army closes it out with a very solid, swift game here on Temple Prime. Congratulations to Dutch Army winning the lion's share of that money, and a big thanks to Media Storm for sponsoring this show match. Thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and this is Sybert signing out.